into the chat box at any time, and we will collect them and save them until the end of the presentation. Type into the small box at the bottom of the chat box and hit enter, and your question will appear. There are a few items you can download from the file share box in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Today's slides are available in two formats. One document is one slide per page, and the file named slides.handout are the slides in handout format, so they are 3 slides per page. We do have a certificate to document your professional development credits, and that will be available in the file share box at the end of the webinar. So with that, I am going to pull up our presentation for today. Our presenters today from the Pennsylvania Department of Education are Audrey Hess and Jenny Edmondson, Public Health Nutrition Consultants, and I will turn it over to Audrey.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar on the final rule for local school wellness policies under the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. The final rule released from the USDA is intended to strengthen wellness policies, hold local education agencies accountable, and reach out to the community so that everyone is aware and included in the wellness policy process. We will begin today by briefly reviewing the background on local school wellness policies. We will discuss the requirement for wellness policy leadership and inclusion of community stakeholders in your wellness team. We'll also review goals for nutrition education and promotion, physical activity, and other school-based activities that must be included in the wellness policy, as well as nutrition standards for all foods and beverages available to students at school. We will go over the new requirements for food and beverage marketing at school, as well as requirements for assessing and reviewing the wellness policy and making the policy available to the public. Finally, we will talk about record keeping and the administrative review, and we'll wrap up with resources that are available or that will be available very soon to assist you with updating your wellness policies and procedures. In 2004, the Child Nutrition and WIC Reauthorization Act changed the Richard B. Russell National School Lunch Act to require participating local education agencies, or LEAs, to establish a local school wellness policy. This new requirement recognized schools for their critical role in helping to turn around the rising childhood obesity rates, because schools reach almost all children, have skilled personnel, and provide healthy eating, physical activity, and physical education opportunities. In 2010, the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act added a new section to the National School Lunch Act. It expanded the scope of school wellness policies by bringing additional stakeholders into the development, implementation, review, and update of the policy. In addition, it required periodic assessment of the policy and public notification on policy updates and assessment results. The final rule was released July 28, 2016, with the implementation required by June 30 of 2017. PDE has posted a copy of the final rule on PAIR's download forms in the wellness policy section. Schools around the country will need to review their current wellness policies and processes to ensure compliance with the final rule. But fortunately, LEAs are not starting from scratch. By the 2010 school year, 99% of students in public schools across the country were enrolled in a district that had a wellness policy in place, and 100% of school districts in Pennsylvania had local school wellness policies. However, what we've learned since the wellness policy requirement was implemented is that not all children are benefiting from their local school wellness policy. Although many written policies are strong, they sometimes are not being enforced consistently, and too often the school community is unaware that a wellness policy is even in place. The Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act addressed some of these issues by placing more emphasis on implementation, public transparency, and involvement. Through the wellness policy process, LEAs are encouraged to identify specific, measurable objectives, including both short-term and long-term goals for wellness in their schools. Under the new regulations, LEAs are required to establish local school wellness policy leadership. specifically to designate one or more LEA or school officials who fully understand the wellness policy requirements of the National School Lunch Act and who have the authority and responsibility to ensure that each school complies with the policy. In addition, the written policy must identify the positions of the LEA or school officials responsible for the implementation and oversight of the wellness policy. PDE encourages schools to offer a way for the community to easily access wellness policy leadership in order to offer suggestions and ideas or to get involved in a wellness committee. For example, schools could list a telephone number or email address of the wellness committee chairperson on their website. Once wellness policy leadership is identified, the next step is to actively identify and seek members for a wellness team that represents each of the categories of stakeholders described in the statute, and to the extent possible, allow them to participate in the wellness policy process. LEAs will now be required to permit specific stakeholders not only to be involved in the development of the wellness policy, but also in the implementation, review, and update of the wellness policy. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act also requires that in addition to the stakeholders named previously in federal law, parents, students, representatives of the School Food Authority, school board, administrators, and the general public, LEAs must also permit teachers of physical education and school health professionals to participate. The written policy must include a plan for involving all of the required stakeholders. The final rule does leave LEAs some discretion in how they implement this requirement. For example, occasionally LEAs might not be able to identify someone from each of the stakeholder categories or find enough people to participate in spite of their efforts to actively recruit stakeholders. Similarly, RCCIs may have situations in which they are unable to include all of the stakeholder groups that are included in the law. In these types of situations, LEAs can instead identify and invite suitable stakeholders who are more appropriate for their wellness team. During an administrative review, the LEA would simply provide an explanation for their rationale. Some LEAs may find that they have to limit participation in a wellness committee if too many individuals from one stakeholder group want to be involved. In that scenario, an LEA might elect to solicit input via feedback forms or other methods to allow for community involvement while still keeping a wellness committee's membership to a workable number. Current wellness policies already include goals for nutrition education, physical activity, and other school-based goals to promote student wellness. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act has added the requirement for goals for nutrition promotion. Nutrition promotion works alongside nutrition education efforts and can enhance student participation in school meal programs and encourage selection of healthier food and beverage options. Another new element in the final rule is that LEAs must review and consider evidence-based strategies and techniques in developing the goals for the wellness policy. We will talk about how to do this a little bit later. First, we will begin by reviewing the types of wellness policy goals. Nutrition education goals are currently required and should already be included in your wellness policy. Nutrition education teaches behavior-focused skills designed to equip students with the knowledge and skills necessary to safeguard their health and make positive choices regarding food and nutrition. Some activity ideas for nutrition education in the wellness policy might include offering nutrition education as part of a comprehensive health education curriculum, integrating nutrition into other core subjects such as math, science, language arts, and social sciences, teaching nutrition literacy and skills such as reading food labels, media awareness, and how to build a healthy plate, and linking nutrition and physical activity to promote healthy lifestyle balance into adulthood. The final rule takes nutrition education a step further by including goals for nutrition promotion. Most of you are probably already engaged in nutrition promotion in your schools. Some examples of nutrition promotion activities might include offering taste testing and surveys in the cafeteria, providing health and nutrition resources to families through newsletter articles, take-home or web-based materials, or back-to-school nights, and offering consistent nutrition messages by posting nutrition and health posters in the school, utilizing healthy foods for classroom lesson plans, and using social media messages to promote physical activity and nutrition. Physical activity goals are also a current requirement, so your wellness policy should already include these. An idea for physical activity might include offering recess, intramurals, and other physical activity opportunities to help students meet the recommended amount of physical activity daily. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends 60 minutes of physical activity per day for school-aged children. So schools can play a role in helping students meet that goal since children spend so many hours daily at school. Other examples of physical activity goals could include the number of minutes per week or classes per week allotted for physical education, and a commitment to neither requiring nor withholding physical activity as a form of punishment in your schools. While nutrition education, nutrition promotion, and physical activity are critical components in providing a healthy school environment, other activities supporting nutrition and health are also important. Wellness policy activities can and should be integrated across the entire school setting rather than limited to the cafeteria and school physical activity facilities. Other school-based goals to promote wellness can include a variety of activities, such as applying for the Healthier U.S. School Challenge or other recognition, offering staff wellness training to inspire staff members to serve as role models, sponsoring health fairs, incorporating school gardens and farm-to-school initiatives, and ensuring adequate time for students to sit and eat their school meals. As mentioned earlier, the new regulations specify that LEAs review and consider evidence-based strategies and techniques when establishing goals for the wellness policy. Evidence-based techniques and strategies have been evaluated, studied, and peer-reviewed. These are ideas that are so effective that they are accepted by experts in the field. So how can schools and districts implement this requirement as they look to update their current policies to comply with the final rule? One way is to invite stakeholders to review the new wellness policy template that will be released in the next few weeks from PDE and the Pennsylvania School Boards Association. Or LEAs may choose to utilize the updated policy template from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation that is already posted on PAIRS. Both of these templates include examples of goals and strategies that are evidence-based. The LEA's wellness team can review and consider the various options listed under each goal heading in the template that they are working from, and select as many as the LEA is willing to adopt as part of their commitment to school health and wellness. And I will turn it over to Jenny.
Thank you, Audrey. The local school wellness policy is already required to include nutrition standards for all foods and beverages available to students during the school day on each participating school campus that's under the jurisdiction of the LEA. These items are often referred to as competitive foods. For the purposes of food and beverage nutrition standards, the school campus means any area of property under the jurisdiction of the school that students are able to access during the school day. The school day is defined as the period from midnight before school begins until 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. These definitions will be familiar to many of you because they are consistent with the definitions under the Smart Snacks in School Nutrition Standards that went into effect on July 1st, 2014. The Smart Snacks Standards are federal nutrition guidelines that govern foods and beverages offered for sale to students on school campus during the school day. And these standards apply to any food or beverage sold outside of the reimbursable school lunch or breakfast. The written policy will address this requirement by providing an assurance that reimbursable school meals are compliant with federal meal pattern requirements. In addition, the wellness policy must state that any foods and beverages offered for sale outside of the reimbursable school meals are compliant with the federal Smart Snacks in School guidelines. Finally, any foods and beverages provided but not sold to students must meet standards that are specified within your local written policy. Although food and beverage standards and guidelines are already required in the local wellness policy, there are updates to this section that all schools and LEAs will need to make under the new regulations. Let's look at this in a little more detail. First, when we talk about competitive foods and beverages that must comply with Smart Snack standards, we're referring to anything sold to students at school. Examples include items sold a la carte in the cafeteria, in vending machines, in school stores and snack carts, and at in-school fundraisers. To update a current wellness policy, any nutrition standards for sold competitive foods that are less strict than the Smart Snack standards must be removed. Many schools and LEAs will find that their current wellness policies reference standards that are called the Nutrition Standards for Competitive Foods in Pennsylvania schools. These were voluntary guidelines that were developed about 10 years ago that have now been superseded by the federal Smart Snack standards. Because of this, PDE is no longer using these standards, and reference to the Nutrition Standards for Competitive Foods in Pennsylvania schools is removed from the wellness policy template, from the PDE website, and from pairs. Like other foods and beverages that are sold to students during the school day, items sold at in-school fundraisers are required to meet the Smart Snack standards. However, USDA has permitted state agencies to allow a limited number of exempt fundraisers each school year that do not have to meet the Smart Snacks requirements. Schools and districts should include an explanation about exempt fundraisers in the written wellness policy. Non-sold foods and beverages commonly include items offered as shared classroom snacks, at classroom celebrations or birthday parties, and as food rewards or incentives. Because these items are not sold to students, they're not required to meet the Smart Snacks in School standards. However, LEAs and schools are required to specify in the written policy what standards will be followed for non-sold foods and beverages offered to students. Because the nutrition standards for competitive foods in Pennsylvania schools no longer apply, the updated wellness policy will need to specify the standards that will be followed for each type of non-sold competitive food offered in participating schools under the LEA's jurisdiction. On the slide, we gave just a couple of examples of standards that a wellness policy might include to address a couple different types of non-sold foods and beverages. The first one, for example, shows a standard for food rewards. It says food shall not be used as a reward or incentive in district schools. The district will provide a list of suggested non-food rewards to offer as an alternative to food rewards. The second one is some sample language addressing classroom parties. That one says, classroom parties and celebrations with food will be limited to no more than one per month in each classroom. Food and beverage marketing is common in schools, and it's defined as advertising or other promotions in schools. Many of the foods and beverages that are heavily marketed to children tend to be low in nutritional value and contribute to poor diet quality, high calorie intake, and excess weight gain. The majority of schools do not currently have policies restricting food and beverage marketing to children. Because of this, the final rule requires that LEAs that choose to allow marketing of foods and beverages to their students must include a policy that limits any marketing to only items that meet the federal Smart Snacks in School guidelines. Although the federal standards for marketing do not apply to marketing that occurs at events outside of school hours, such as after-school sporting or fundraising events, LEAs do have discretion to enact broader or stronger policies that address these situations if they choose. The marketing of foods and beverages applies on school property and during school hours. Some examples of where the restrictions apply include the exterior of vending machines, posters, menu boards, coolers, trash cans, and cups used for beverage dispensing. Areas where the marketing restriction does not apply include personal clothing and personal items of students and staff, or the packaging of products brought from home for personal consumption. It also does not apply to materials used for educational purposes in the classroom, such as teachers' use of soda advertisements as a media education tool. The final rule doesn't require schools to immediately go out and replace menu boards, coolers, tray liners, beverage cups, and other food service equipment that depicts non-compliant products or logos. The final rule also is not intended to require schools to remove or replace an existing scoreboard on a sports field or in a gymnasium in order to comply with this requirement. However, as the school nutrition service reviews and considers new contracts, and if scoreboards or other durable equipment are replaced or updated over time, purchasing decisions should reflect the applicable marketing guidelines established by the LEA in the wellness policy. To check up on the strength and implementation of the policy, an assessment must be conducted a minimum of every 3 years, and the results of the assessment must be made available to the public in an accessible and easily understood manner. For example, an LEA could post the results of the assessment on the district website or report them in an article in a district-wide newsletter. An assessment of the wellness policy is completed by the LEA. It measures how well each school in the LEA is complying with the wellness policy and how the local policy compares to model wellness policies. It also includes a description of the progress made in attaining wellness policy goals. As the community changes and as goals are met and new health science and technologies emerge, it's important that the wellness policy is updated to reflect these changes. Although the frequency of modifying the policy is ultimately up to the LEA, updates and modifications to the wellness policy should be considered and reviewed based on the results of the triennial assessment or every 3 years. Transparency to the public is an important part of the new regulations. Under the final rule, LEAs are required to inform and update the public, including parents, students, staff, and the community, about the content and implementation of the local school wellness policy. When the LEA updates the policy, these updates must be passed on to the public. Suggestions include posting the policy to the school or LEA website, sending a back-to-school backpack flyer home with students, and presenting information at a PTO or PTA meeting. This means that as schools and LEAs make the required changes to the wellness policy to be compliant with the new regulations, they also need to be thinking about how they plan to publicly announce these changes and updates at the start of the 2017-2018 school year. Record-keeping requirements are the same as what LEAs and schools are already familiar with, because they must always maintain records demonstrating compliance with the various requirements under the National School Lunch Act. Required documentation includes a copy of the written local wellness policy, documentation of annually informing the public about the content of the wellness policy and any updates to the policy, documentation demonstrating how the community is notified by the school or district that they can participate in the development, implementation, periodic review, and updating of the policy, a copy of the most recent triennial assessment, and notification of the assessment results to the public. The Division of Food and Nutrition at PDE conducts administrative reviews of LEAs at least once every 3 years, and the wellness policy is part of the general areas of the administrative review. During the administrative review, LEAs must provide a copy or appropriate web address of the current policy. LEAs will also provide documentation demonstrating how the public knows about the policy and is informed of updates to the wellness policy. As part of the review process, schools will explain and document when and how they review and update their local wellness policy, describe who is involved in the review and update of the policy, explain and provide documentation of how the LEA informs potential stakeholders about how they can participate in the wellness policy process, and provide a copy of the most recent triennial assessment and documentation showing how the results of the assessment were made available to the public. Schools and LEAs are expected to review their current local school wellness policies this school year, and the final rule requires the policies to be updated and implemented by June 30th, 2017. for schools and LEAs will be to assemble stakeholders to recommend an updated local school wellness policy to their school board for approval. To simplify this process, PDE has collaborated with the Pennsylvania School Boards Association to update the PSBA wellness policy template for compliance with the new regulations. The PSBA template is being finalized as we speak, and the expected release is in March, in just the next couple of weeks, we hope. As we mentioned earlier, another option is to utilize the Alliance for Healthier Generations template, which was updated in September. The Alliance template is comprehensive and has been fully vetted by USDA, so it is another excellent option that you could use. Please do watch your emails and the message board and wellness policy section of download forms on pairs for the new PSBA template, in addition to additional resources and technical assistance that will be posted there. On pairs, sponsors will find links to healthy party and shared classroom snack ideas, suggestions for non-food alternatives to food rewards and incentives, healthy fundraising ideas, and more. In addition, you can watch for a helpful checklist to be posted on pairs, along with the new PSBA template, which will help guide you as you update your policies. USDA has some websites that provide assistance with the wellness policy. This site here includes pages that walk LEAs through the wellness policy process, including resources and guidance to implement the various policy elements, best practices and success stories, and funding and training opportunities. USDA recently released an outreach toolkit that is customizable to your school or LEA. It includes a letter to the principals, parent flyers in English and Spanish, presentations that you can use for both staff and parents, newsletter articles, and social media posts. For questions relating to local school wellness policies, please feel free to contact me. My email is shown there on the screen, and of course, we will answer as many questions as we can today as well, but you're welcome to contact me afterward if we need to address something else. I'll turn it back over to Elaine.
Okay, thanks,